When I was 12, my mom had just started letting me stay home alone. This must have been around that age. We lived in a calm and usually very safe small town. Quiet streets, big yards, kind neighbors, and a cozy little village filled with shops and places to eat. It wasn't the kind of place where you feel the need to look over your shoulder if you were walking at night. It felt completely safe. That's one of the reasons my parents were comfortable leaving me by myself at such a young age. Even today, I still live in that same house with my parents. The night this all happened, it was a weekend. My parents were going out and decided to leave me home alone overnight. When my sister and I were much younger, our grandparents would usually look after us. But that night, my sister was away, and since I was old enough, my parents felt it was okay to leave me alone. My parents had me young, so they were always fairly active. They liked to go out on weekends or take short trips with friends. That night, they left me some money to order pizza. It was a perfect setup for a 12 or 13-year-old. A house all to myself, video games, and pizza. At the time, I was really into James Bond video games. I was playing Nightfire on my PS2 for probably the third time. Once I beat the game again, I called in an order for pizza. There used to be a pizza place just a few blocks from our house called Johnny's. It's closed now, but back then it was one of our favorites. I ordered a regular pizza. At 12 years old, I could easily eat 3 slices on my own. My mom told me to wrap up the leftovers in foil and put them in the fridge. While waiting for the pizza, I switched to a different game. When the doorbell finally rang, I grabbed the $20 bill my parents had left and ran downstairs. My mom had told me to leave a $4 tip, which was decent considering the place was only a few blocks away. The delivery guy looked to be in his 30s. He had a messy long beard, wore glasses, and had on a black trucker hat. I gave him the $20 and asked for the right change. As he handed me the pizza and counted the money, he glanced past me into the house and asked, "Are you here alone?" I immediately knew that was a strange and unsettling question. My parents had warned me about talking to strangers. I told him my parents were on their way back home. Not the smartest reply. I should have just said no, but I think he noticed there were no cars in the driveway and that it was just a kid answering the door. After I took the pizza and got the change, I shut the door. I ate in the kitchen, probably 3 slices, then wrapped the rest and put them in the fridge. I headed back upstairs and played another James Bond game, Agent Under Fire. I didn't like it as much, but it was still fun. I was deep into the game when, around 11 p.m., the doorbell rang. Thinking it was my parents, I ran to the door and called out, "Mom? Dad?" But a voice I didn't recognize replied, "Hey, I need help." He said he needed to use the phone. I asked, "Who is this?" He just repeated that he needed to use a phone. I was too scared to look out the window, so I went back upstairs. I knew it would be a terrible idea to open the door. As I walked up the stairs, which faced the front door, I suddenly heard him banging on it, saying, "Wait, please, I need help." That's when I realized he had seen me. He must have been watching through a glass window above the door. I turned and saw his silhouette on the dark porch. I couldn't see his eyes, but I could tell he was staring right at me. I rushed to my parents' room where the only upstairs phone was and immediately called my mom's cell. I didn't have my dad's number memorized. She answered, sounding like she'd had a few drinks, but sobered up quickly when I told her someone was at the door trying to get in. Her tone completely changed. She started asking questions. Had I talked to him? Did he know I was alone? I told her yes. I had answered the door earlier for Pizza Guy, and he asked if I was by myself. While I was explaining this, the doorbell rang twice more. I was panicking, telling her the man wouldn't leave. She told me to stay in her room, lock the door, and not move. She and my dad were calling the police, while my mom stayed on the phone with me. My dad used his phone to call the cops. They had to step outside the restaurant they were at for better reception. It was summer, and we had the windows slightly open for fresh air. I heard the gate to our backyard open quietly. I told my mom, and she said to stay quiet, don't make a sound, and keep the lights off. I whispered, what if he tries to get into the den window? My mom told me to stop talking and just wait for the police. Then I heard it Footsteps downstairs. Someone was inside. I whispered my mom, and I could hear her shouting on the other phone, probably telling the police, "He's inside the house." She told me to hide under the bed and not come out. At 12, it was the most terrifying experience of my life. The only thing separating me from him was a lock on the bedroom door. I heard someone on the stairs, then in the hallway. They must have checked mine and my sister's rooms first. Then they came to my parents' room and tried the doorknob. It was locked. They tried it again and again, like it might suddenly open. Then there was a soft knock. No voice. Just that. One more try on the handle, and then silence. I heard the footsteps going back down the hallway and stairs. I stayed completely still, too scared to even breathe loudly. My mom kept whispering updates from the police, telling me not to speak. Eventually, she said the police were there, but I still needed to stay quiet. I thought I'd hear them break the door down, but instead, I suddenly heard multiple heavy steps and a man shouting my name, saying he was with the police. I unlocked the door, and 2 officers were upstairs. 2 more were downstairs. They didn't break in. The back door was left open, and the rear sliding window was wide open too. That's likely how he got in. I explained everything to the officers, including my suspicions about the pizza guy. My parents were still on the phone, and were already driving back. By the time they got home, only 2 officers remained. The police included the delivery guy in their report and said they'd investigate. The next night, my parents took me to Johnny's and asked if I could point out the guy. I didn't see him, so they asked the manager who matched the description. He said it sounded like Phil, who was out on a delivery. After hearing our story, the manager insisted it couldn't be Phil and told us to leave. My parents made a big scene, saying they'd never come back. We waited in the car for nearly an hour, but Phil never returned. They suspected the manager warned him. Later, my parents tried talking to a few lawyers, but no one took the case due to lack of evidence. We never went back to that pizzeria again, and it took a long time before my parents felt safe leaving me home alone after that. To this day, I'm convinced it was a delivery guy or someone connected to him. Who else would have known I was alone?